Hello, everybody. Welcome along to the Event Industry News podcast. My name's James Dixon, wishing you all, as always, a very good morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever or wherever you tune in to today's podcast from. And on with today's guest. Our guest today is somebody who, if you've been watching the media intensely over the last few months, and let's face it, who hasn't, you may well have seen his name or his face on some of the major news channels as he represents and speaks very eloquently, I might add, about the state of the industry and the festival industry particularly. Nick Morgan is our guest today. Nick, welcome along to the podcast.
Hello, yeah, thank you.
Nick is the CEO of We Are the Fair and We Are Placemaking, over 2 decades experience of the industry, etc., etc., etc. I'm sure I don't need to rewind the clock, Nick, and remind you how long you've been in this industry, but it certainly has put you in a good position over the last few months to speak like you have done on behalf of the industry. First of all, I suppose, give us a little bit of context about We Are the Fair and your place within the industry and what it is that the company actually does.
Yeah, so We Are the Fair, effectively, we are both event producer and health and safety. We've got a risk compliance division, so we work across 132 sort of shows a year or per annum, or did at least until last year. Obviously, the world changed for us all within our sector and many others. So we, we effectively produce shows on behalf of the promoter. The promoter generally is our client, far ranging from things like Eldorado, which is a camping show, Eastern Electrics, which is an urban one-day show, and various capacities. Our smallest show is a great little show called Camp Wildfire, which is around sort of 1,000, 1,500 over a weekend. And then our bigger shows are right up to 20, 25,000. Then for compliance or the risk element, we again do health and safety licensing for various shows from things like Gotwood and Houghton through to on our placemaking side estates, so things like Grosvenor Estates and various other London estates, and also national property developers looking after effectively, their event or public realm, I should say, their public realm environments where they're trying to activate and do events. And then the placemaking side, as the name suggests, does lots of placemaking, but genuine placemaking, strategic alliances, and we work with lots of estates looking at curation of genuinely attractive and destination-led events that will support retail, which has also had a torrid time, as we've all read in the media.
Absolutely. Just doing very, very basic maths, 132 shows, that's well over 2 a week if you sort of divide it over the course of a year. That's a significant workload, no doubt, for a significant number of people within your organization. To go from that sort of figure to zero literally in the space of 24 hours when lockdown was initially implemented last March. What did that sort of first 4 to 8 weeks do to you as a business, and how difficult was it working under those conditions at that point, if you can cast your mind back?
The 16th of March was very notable. I mean, that's when obviously there was the Boris announcement aligned with us leaving the office at that point. So that was a challenging evening. And then effectively, the phone rang, and on a daily basis, show after show, either cancelled, some, only a few postponed till later in the season, and I think all of us thought we may get a couple of shows away in September, maybe. However, obviously, as we learnt more about the pandemic, that obviously put rights to that. So then everything was effectively postponed or cancelled altogether till this year on the postponement side. So the first few weeks were horrific. We were looking at financing options, every single option out there. Luckily, we had a fairly shored up balance sheet prior to COVID. And one of my sort of strategic focuses over the last few years has been around placemaking, to try and not have this huge crescendo or exponential growth, in revenue just over the summer. We wanted to try and mimic that over the winter as well. So have a sort of season that's continuous, because we're also, very culture based as an agency, and we don't have lots of this, sort of freelance or permalance basis. For us, we want our staff, we want to build culture within our staff.
Yeah.
So to effectively have a season that's continuous. And now with shows being so complex, it's a year-round relationship. I don't need to tell people who are listening to this that, we obviously don't turn up on a Monday and then deliver a show on a Saturday. Year-round stakeholder engagement, dealing with authorities, whether it's licensing, it's continuous. And it's never been more complex than it is, currently. I'm probably going to get a little more complex given COVID.
I guess so, yeah. And you're right. You finish one event, you pat everybody on the back, you maybe raise a cold bottle of something and toast the success of whatever event that's just finished. And then the next day you're on email and you're on phone discussing about how it's going to run the following year. It is as simple as that. Most people in the industry and who are listening to this will relate to that type of relationship.
It is a year round, and the onus on the organizer, such as ourselves, is ever more. Everything from, you'll hear expressions like Zone X, last mile. Again, that didn't exist. 10 years ago, you just opened the exit gates and effectively centered all your attention on the boundary of the site, and that was pretty much it. Whereas now, we, on our bigger shows, we classify the sort of secondary bit like Zone X, which is right up to the nearest transport hub. That's almost like a second event. We have a separate event manager, we have a separate plan just to manage that element of egress and ingress. So
yeah, it's crazy going from that sort of level of detail and thought to overnight, pretty much having every event either postponed or cancelled for that year suddenly frees up a lot of time. One thing that I wanted to ask you on today's podcast that I jotted down when I was thinking about it yesterday was whether or not the luxury of having some time on your hands has allowed you as a business and as an organization to maybe look at new strategies. Because one thing, having spoken to a few different people in the industry over the last few months, is that we are so busy running from event to event to event, and there is that year-round management of your client portfolio that has to take place, as we've already alluded to, is whether or not the last year, if we to pull any positives at all, it's the opportunity to maybe take stock, refocus, look at how we can do things a little bit better, look at what we will need to implement in a post-pandemic world. Have you allowed yourself that opportunity?
Yeah, I think you're totally right. You do not have any time to come up for air, especially during season. So for us, me especially with the senior team, we've spent a lot of time. I'm not one for just doing strategy for strategy's sake, but we have looked at a proposition. We are actually launching a new proposition based on the amount of workflow that's coming in around risk compliance, an extension of that. And I've been looking at all sorts of joint ventures, so we are more aligned with some of our competitors and will be as we go forward. And it's been amazing, like the support network, the sort of ecosystem that exists. It's been phenomenal. It's been really, really interesting and engaging. So for me, we have really looked at our business. We've looked at like process flows, without getting too boring and granular, but we've looked at everything from the top down. And I think, as horrendous as last year was, I'll be honest, 2 or 3 years ago, it just felt relentless, and it just felt like you are on this sort of treadmill, and we weren't improving in terms of innovation, show after show. One of the key things in our aspiration is obviously to tweak each show to get better and better. And we were doing it to an extent, but I think now we've improved our processes where we're looking at every element. We've critiqued the last season, so all of 2019 sort of went under the microscope, and we've implemented some really, I think, amazing things, and the team have been amazing to get through this. Horrendous for them as well, not to be in a field. Some of our younger employees, that's what they thrive for and live for, and to tell them it's not happening, you're going to be at home, it's really, really tough. So I think it's brought us potentially even closer together. One of our key values is around sort of family and culture. For me, there is a silver lining, and we've built in longer relationships with our clients. We spent a lot of time with them on the phone, supporting them as best we can. But we're in, I guess, a more fortunate position than the value chain. The supply chain has been absolutely decimated by this, and that's who I really feel for. You know, we're paid, you know, we sell time effectively advancing shows, and you know, the majority of our clients are really good and paid us up to the point of the show cancellation, you know, and that's been amazing. But obviously the supply chain generally only get paid on delivery of inventory on site, and obviously with no shows that didn't happen. So for them, it's been horrific. I mean, some of the conversations I've had, you know, it makes you quite sad to hear them.
Given, as I said at the start of today's podcast, that you've been very vocal, you've represented, I know that you're involved in the National Outdoor Events Association in NOEA. You were recently joined the Festival DCMS and Public Health England workforce, and you've been in and out the media. So when you've spoken about, you know, support for the sector, is it very much that part of the sector that you think deserves some sort of support? Is it that supply chain element rather than the organisation at the top?
Well, I think it's all. It's just you know, it's well known, but within, you know, DCMS, ACE, so Arts Council England, you know, have supported. You know, they put, you know, 1.57 billion towards you know, our sector, whether it be, you know, more towards, you know, hospitality and venues, but also loads of festivals were supported, albeit loads weren't, but very little of the supply chain was. So, you know, and in truth, those claims or grants that went in would obviously focus probably on the central office, you know, and the curation of those festivals, not necessarily the supply chain. So it's not like the supply chain were benefiting from, say, a promoter getting that revenue. So I think, yeah, they were slightly, well, definitely missed. So yeah, and for me, you know, that we see them as partners. You know, I don't like to necessarily call them suppliers. Without them, you know, we've also spent 20 odd years getting, you know, our suppliers understanding how we work, we understand how they work, you know, and they're integral to the success of a show. Because, you know, we all hear horror stories about suppliers as well, you know, that actually don't deliver, new to market. So we have quite a lot of DD or due diligence that goes on. Yeah. We obviously onboard new suppliers. So, yeah, we want them to survive. I know loads have sold off inventory to other sectors like construction to shore up balance sheets. Yeah. Loads that have, you know, I hate the word pivoted, but effectively gone into, say, construction and thinking, well, the credit terms are better. I'm getting better payment rates, so why would I come back to festivals? You know, so lots of people are disillusioned, you know, as much as they love festivals. Some people, it's quite a passion project, and that passion I think with the strain of last year has probably dissipated for many.
Have you been able to you know, how frequently are you speaking to not just your own suppliers, but have you spoken to other suppliers in the industry who you don't necessarily use for your own events, to get a handle on how they are surviving, what sort of measures they're taking, and is there a potential that when the industry does come back and when we are allowed to start running events again, hopefully this summer, is there a potential to be short on suppliers and certain equipment because some companies have simply gone under, or they've moved into other industries and don't want to come back to events?
There is a real worry. I mean, I've been, you know, very vocal at many a meeting, just saying that whilst promoters are moving dates, you know, which is understandable, but moving dates back to August, September, hoping that they've got the best chance of success in terms of going live, you know, that obviously is putting huge pressure on the inventory that's available in the UK. So, you know, if you just take shows like, well, there's many, but, you know, say an 80,000 show, the reason everyone, you know, or obviously Glastonbury's cancelled, but the reason people don't necessarily compete with Glastonbury is not only the competition on tickets, but is also inventory. Like Glastonbury takes so much kit out for well over a month. You know, we've often had to inherit kit that's been stuck in Glastonbury. We can't get it out, like Trackway, you know, if it's been particularly bad weather. So it
buried 3 foot down.
Yeah, it has a huge influence on, you know, shows that are, you know, reliant on getting that kit out on time. So, you know, the same could be true in sort of August, September. There's so many shows on that August bank holiday. So there is a worry. I'm not so concerned about the ticketing. I think like the pent up demand's there. So I think tickets will sell. but I am slightly concerned about obviously the inventory being available. And like you say, some people have sold off. I know like one toilet provider sold off. They had 1,000 toilets. They only have 100 now, and they're, sort of I wouldn't say lost faith, but they're close on.
Well, the other thing that I thought about, and I'm sorry to cut across you, but is transport, because one of the first things to go, if you're looking to get some quick cash in as a business, if you've got 4 long wheelbase vans sat outside your unit that are not delivering kit anywhere, it's an easy thing to be able to sort of get rid of quickly, and as that eases back in, companies have got to start maybe thinking about funding and getting their hands on vehicles. And that to me occurred the other week, and I was thinking about it, that actually there could be an issue where they may have kit, but realistically not enough transport to get it there, particularly if once industry recovers. I think you're going to get so many events who are trying to run at a time of year where they don't usually run in order to try and recoup some lost revenue. Is not just the supply chain itself and having the kit to put into those events, but the people, the manpower, the vehicles to get it from A to B quickly and quick turnaround times.
Yeah, I mean, we have looked at that. I suppose we're in a fortunate position because of the amount of shows we have. We're actually looking at private haulage, and we're looking at actually running that haulage ourselves. So procuring it from, more traditional sectors, and then bringing them in and effectively moving our kit, almost touring lots of sets of kit to these different shows. But obviously, if you're running one show or 2 shows, that is going to be more challenging. So yeah, no, you're right. And those people that did have, say, transport logistics within their portfolio have again pivoted into, I mean, there's never been a busier sector, has there, than courier.
Yeah.
So, they're all seconded to whether it be, DPD, whatever. And again, they're getting really good rates of pay.
Yeah.
So
is there a scenario, are you speaking to clients at all about the possibility of, maybe in the short term, maybe for this year, streamlining certain production elements so that stuff can sort of leapfrog fairly easily? So where they may have really, really specific requirements, usually for their show in terms of staging, in terms of, audio, lighting, etc., being able to make things a little bit more modular so that it can be packed up quickly, go somewhere else and set up quickly.
I mean, that's quite a tricky conversation to have, because, we're all trying to, present the best customer experience possible. And the last thing we need, we need to come back. I think the expectation is so high from consumers, understandably, they've got pent up demand. Also, you've got to remember, some of them have rolled their tickets for, over a year. We're all under financial pressure. It's not like anyone necessarily has loads of surplus cash. So I think it means a lot to them. And I think there's going to be a lot of competition. For this year, I think the demand will be there. I think demand, there's loads of data to suggest there's going to be, exponential growth in shows for the next 2 or 3 years, but also means it's going to be a very competitive market. So I think there's a real, if it's aesthetics and something that the consumer can see, I think that would be a challenge. They don't want to cut back on the tech side. However, we may look at streamlining like back of house stuff, like whether it's, production cabins, if that's possible, anything else. But obviously with COVID, we also need to bear that in mind. What we can't do is be reducing people's workspace to allow for, more touring elements.
This is again brings me on to another point that I wanted to ask you today in terms of what, I hate the term in a way, post-pandemic world looks like. It sounds like the apocalypse has come, and we're all driving around like Mad Max across deserts in V8s. But from an audience and a worker point of view, what is, from your perspective, that world looking like at the moment? Because I think what a lot of people read yesterday, and we're recording this on the 23rd of February, so yesterday evening and yesterday daytime was the announcement, if you call it that, from the Prime Minister, with the roadmap out of lockdown, with some dates built into it that may or may not be hit as targets. And a lot of people are asking instantly, or looking at the date 21st of June, particularly, Nick, and saying, great, 21st of June, big knees up, and everything from then onwards is going to be hunky-dory. Realistically, what's it going to look like come sort of July, August, if those targets are hit? Will this, a festival's planning to have social distancing to reduce numbers? What's the actual makeup and physical areas going to have to look like?
Yeah, I mean, the work I do with on the task force of Public Health England, ever since day one, I sit with, there's probably 20 other promoters, maybe slightly less, varying capacities. But the general assumption or methodology we're approaching it with is social distancing is a really hard control measure to implement. So effectively delivering shows without social distancing. But what we have been looking at is there other sensible controls that we can introduce? One of the most important things is also customer confidence, regardless of the pandemic. Of all ages, shockingly, very recently, some surveys have suggested all ages are nervous about returning, into that environment. So we need to give, whether it's perceptive or is a control measure, we need to make customers feel, comfortable. So we've been looking at, controls around service points, whether it's F&B, merchandising areas. But yeah, the realism of, say, trying to implement social distancing front of main stage is, I would suggest, null impossible. However, we have got a couple of shows we are doing social distancing, but that was always the plan, regardless of the roadmap last night. And that's a different audience, and they can sit in their pods of 6, and it's not like a dance show where you expect people to get up and dance at, front of main stage. So there are, and obviously drive-ins, I'm sure we'll see more of those, but in general, we expect social distancing to be a control we can't implement, but we'll do everything else in our power to make people feel safe. And we're the leading practitioners in the world on health and safety. So
exactly right.
And no one wants that super spreader headline, do they? So I think all promoters are pragmatic and sensible, as are we. We're not going to risk the audience or ourselves. We've got a lot of crew that are going to be on site, but it is going to be a disease we live with. I think the Public Health England have very openly discussed this as endemic rather than pandemic now. So like flu, it's it's a control we're going to have to do, whether it's an annualized jab for the more vulnerable, etc. It's going to be with us for some time, and it's how we sensibly approach that.
Yeah, the statistics and the sort of the daily figures that are coming back at the moment, particularly this week, regarding the effectiveness of the 2 main vaccines in the UK at the moment, the Pfizer and the Oxford vaccine, are hugely promising, looking at not just how they are stopping people from becoming severely ill or catching COVID, but also, and of particular interest for me is that they are clearly reducing transmission. Anybody who has had the vaccine, it's clear that they present a significantly lower risk of transmitting the virus on. And that is key, certainly in the events world. And as you quite rightly point out, you can make a main arena at a festival bigger and assume then that by putting the same amount of people into a bigger space, they're all going to spread out nicely. They won't. There's a stage there is a focal point. They've come to see those artists. They will gravitate towards the front. That will happen. So I think you're right to point out that it's the other measures that we have to take that are in our control, in terms of sanitization stations, in terms of when they are out of the arena space or away from a stage, can you control the distancing around food vendors, around beverage, in campsites, etc. One thing I wanted to ask you was the subject of certification. Again, that's something that cropped up last night and was put to the Prime Minister, and there's been a lot of talk in the industry about, call them what you want, COVID passports, vaccine passports, apps that are being trialed at the moment to dovetail in with ticketing systems. Where do you stand on that as a subject, and is it something that you've sort of explored and discussed within any of your groups?
Yeah, I mean, it's a hotly debated topic. Obviously, huge concerns are around, privacy and data breach. So so there's 2 sides to it. I mean, it's a very, politicized debate, but effectively, it might be the way through this. I mean, especially for travel corridors. I mean, if a foreign, body effectively implements, it's nothing we can do. It may be a protocol that we have to adopt if we want to travel. I appreciate that's not to festivals. So I think, there's loads of challenges with it. People are really concerned, rightfully. Does it mean that, all of my health history then, becomes part of this sort of health passport?
Sure.
But, there are some good news stories around it. I mean, what I have learned is, there's a data point for every vaccination. So effectively that data already exists. And apparently that can already be implemented and integrated into the NHS app and My GP app. So that's a positive. In fact, the data already exists. So that integration is available, but obviously then it's the it's the political debate of whether, that's the route. I think the government are quite resistant to doing it, but and also as you come down the age groups, we've already got data coming through that the adoption of the vaccine will obviously be lesser and lesser, understandably. So, if you implement that, what do you do with someone who presents who hasn't got a vaccine? Then you get into, is it discrimination? The same, I was on another call recently around employment, on crews. Is it, that's effectively discrimination, isn't it? If you say, well, you can only get employed if you have this vaccine.
Sure, yeah.
So it is, I think it's going to, this debate is not going away, and it's going to be something that's ever increasing. But the FA implemented it, not a health passport as such, but, you had to present a negative test.
Yes.
So I think it will be something that will resurface probably daily.
I think so. I don't think there's any getting away from this subject at the moment, and until there's sort of a definitive answer on it and which way they want to go, I think a couple of things will happen. It will rage as a debate, and certainly the counter argument of it discriminating against people who choose not to have the vaccine. Now, I said this on a previous podcast in the last couple of weeks with our guest Liz Taylor, that my own personal view on it is likening it very much to when the smoking ban came in a few years ago, is that it wasn't taking away people's choice to smoke. It was simply saying that if you want to do that, you now have to do it outside, so you're not putting others at risk.
Yeah.
And I think there's a similarity, it may sound extreme, but there's a similarity here whereby nobody's taking away people's right to not have the vaccine, but there may be a decision that has to be made to say that if you choose not to have it, that's absolutely within your rights and you're entitled to do that, but you may forego, the opportunity to come inside and put other people potentially at risk.
Yeah. I mean, I think the default position on that would be either you have obviously the vaccination passport, call it what you will, or you present a negative test if you've got concerns. And
Yes.
I think at that point, we're governed under reasonably practical and duty of care. We wouldn't be presenting a good duty of care if we said, oh, it doesn't matter if you've either got a negative test or you've had a vaccination. So I think at that point, we're trying to create the safest environment possible. That's what we're leading towards. So I think either or, there needs to be an acceptance. And yeah, of course, if you don't want to have a negative or a test regime or protocol prior and don't want that, then unfortunately that is probably going to suppress your options in terms of the hospitality industry.
That's a great point that you've raised there, and it is the fact that if somebody doesn't want to have the vaccine and they are therefore unable to prove that they've had the vaccine, then there is that option now of testing. And one thing that I'm acutely aware of is that at the start of all of this pandemic, it was we were hearing stories of 2 days, 48 hours to get a test to find out if you were positive. And now we're in a fantastic position less than a year on where you can order lateral flow kits and get a result within 30 minutes, which if you think about some of the queues that you see to get into a music festival of, campers queuing up, there are long queues at music festivals to actually get through the gates, get your wristbands and get onto site. That presents in itself possibly an opportunity where lateral flow testing could be deployed. Somebody could be given a test at the start when they join the line, and by the time they get to the front, they could have the result back.
Yeah, I mean, there are big challenges around that. Again, I've been probably one of the more naysayers in our groups, just because I want to adopt the aviation model. So, not the burden, but the onus is put onto the attendee. And whether it's test at home kits, because I think, it will be readily available through retail at some point, or there's a mass testing regime nationally run by the NHS, which happened up in Liverpool. Obviously, there's a secondary debate. People have been saying, well, you can manipulate the test, just like if you said to people, here's a drink driving, you self-administer. Obviously, you can manipulate it to be negative. But when I've been to a testing centre, I wasn't supervised. So the same would be true in that environment. And then I think anything's better than nothing. But I think doing it on the door, you've just got to, if you're going to do it properly, effectively, everyone needs to remain sterile until they've had that result. So you've got to think of the amount of infrastructure needed to contain, say, 10,000 people would be quite difficult.
Yeah, it's a very fair point, and I suppose a strong element, a large element of your business is dealing with the health and safety side of events. And when you are looking at risk and mitigating risk, that's forgive me if I'm wrong here, but very much what it's about. You're never going to get risk down to absolute zero. It's all about mitigating risk, but you can never eliminate it completely. And I guess that if you put the faith in the festival goer or the event goer to do a test in advance and come with a certificate to show that, you're putting your faith in the fact that they want to come to that event. They're desperate to come to that event. A lot of people, they want to be there. Therefore, the vast majority of them will do morally the right thing.
Yeah.
And you are never going to be able to eliminate the risk of a contingent of people fudging it. Exactly like you can't eliminate the risk of people trying to get contraband into a festival site, no matter how stringent your security checks are. It will always be there.
And you'd hope there's a moral obligation to their peer group. If they're not doing it and they're going with their friends, which generally at a festival it's all about, that social interaction with your friends, especially in advance, and then you may meet other people on site. So there's a moral obligation there is to protect them. If you feel or manipulate the test and then prove to happen to have COVID and then pass it on to one of your best friends who, tragically then loses their life. I think there is a moral, and you'd hope in society that still exists. And I think it does. I think people are, taking it serious. I don't think in general, there's always going to be some, like you say, contraband is the same thing. There's always a percentage of the audience that will try that on. And I hope that's true.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when we sort of flip over to the opposite side of the event and look at the actual operations and the staff and the crew and the people that are coming on site to work there, you mentioned from a discriminatory point of view, being able to tell somebody they can't work because they haven't had a vaccine is very, very difficult from an employment perspective. Therefore, a lateral flow testing scenario or an advanced testing scenario with the aviation presents itself as a possibility. What sort of budget issues is it going to have on an event where they may have to plan to lose 5% of their staff or crew potentially if they test negative in advance, last minute, and they can't work on site and they need to bring in additional crew members to complete a particular task? That's going to have budget impacts. And what sort of planning is being done around that at the moment? And is there a sort of a figure that the industry is working towards as a contingency to say, look, we're going to have to plan an extra 5 or 10% worth of manpower into an event?
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at I can't go into the actual margin, but effectively we are looking at a build cost, because it's not just that, it's all the exponential costs associated. So like sanitation that you've already spoken about, water provision, service points potentially being expanded. There are huge costs, and I think there's a myth, many people in the industry know, but we're not sat on millions of pounds of margin on a show. It's very slim after you've got talent. The costs of producing a show have gone up year on year for all the reasons I said at the beginning of the podcast.
Yeah.
The onus is so much more on us than it's ever been, from, like I said, managing all of the egress into the nearest transport hub, it has a huge cost, even if it's just fencing. So I think all of that is something we're considering now and looking at. And we need to be realistic. I mean, we're governed under reasonably practical, and we're doing everything we can to look at that. So, like you say, we're crewing, whether they work in bubbles. I mean, we're working on this guidance. We're looking at sort of 7 areas, from ventilation, close contact, which is looking at things like the ingress, search regimes, protocols, looking at sort of practical solutions on crewing. So, do we have, well, we will have an increase in sanitation cycles, but, less sharing of equipment like plant, people in different bubbles, but all of that comes with a cost. Duplication of, say, a forklift or a cherry picker obviously is double the amount of cost, and then you've got transport on top to get it to site. So there are concerns, and we're still trying to work through what those sort of costs could look like. And this guidance that we're working with Public Health England, DCMS, should be forthcoming. I mean, we're hoping to get the sort of first draft. We've all inputted into it around mid-March, and hopefully it'll be published by the end of March, which will hopefully help as a guide, but it is only a guide. It's not one size fits all. It's, everyone adopts it obviously into their own plans.
Yeah. Is there, this is a very, very sort of specific line of questioning here, but one thing that we've all learned to do in the last year is wash our hands more frequently. That's something we've been told to do.
Yeah.
Wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. And just yesterday, the Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, was saying again, this is the sort of thing that needs to continue post-pandemic, you know, the subject of washing your hands. And where I'm going with this is that going to put pressure on that particular element of infrastructure? Because at festivals particularly, most toilets, for example, just have sanitizer gel or the foam in them. Are we now going to have to put in a lot more temporary water supply so that people can wash their hands and not just use a hand gel? And is that going to put a pressure on suppliers of temporary water to events?
Yeah, I mean, we used to have, and many organisers used to be quite reliant on Bowsers or tankers, whereas now, I mean, maybe we're in a more fortunate position, but most of ours are, you know, close to urban environments.
Mm-hmm.
So we tap into the main supply. So, you know, that shouldn't be an issue. But obviously, then looking at things like if you have to heat all the water, that would be a real challenge on site. But, you know, I think like alcohol gels, sanitation, you know, that I believe, you know, does have the same effect as long as it's implemented, you know, properly. So
Yes.
again, I think, you know, and I think people, I see it on, you know, we're already on some sites, whether it's within, you know, placemaking, and people are, you know, fairly self-sufficient. I mean, where I happen to live, there's a film set, a warehouse that's used regularly, you know, and everyone there, for example, is, you know, carrying consistently their own hand sanitizer. You know, I think it's so embedded in our regime. I mean, they talk about, you know, 8 weeks to embed a culture of routine, whereas now we've been doing it for so long. You know, I think people will take it upon themselves to also be quite responsible.
Hey, absolutely. The face mask thing is the sort of the biggest sort of benchmark for that adoption of and something becoming a habit, as far as I'm concerned. You know, a few years back, you know, we all looked at Michael Jackson walking around in his face mask and think, what an absolute loon. You know, and similarly, you know, you see somebody walk past you in the street when you're walking through central London or central Manchester or somewhere, they're in a photo, well, what are they doing with a face mask on? And now suddenly in a short period of time, everybody's got one on in the supermarket. People can't walk around Aldi without, you know, without a face mask on. So it just shows you that if people see a genuine reason for it and they suddenly realize, right, that's got to happen, our attitudes towards face masks have changed significantly, I think. And when it was being spoken about just this morning about, you know, a moral obligation on people maybe to wear face masks of their own choice when they're on public transport and things like that, I think we will see that. I think people will realize that it's an issue, and it will help. And I think
Yeah,
at some point we probably have to take a step back and put our faith in the people.
and as well, you know, we all need to. I think for far too long in society, we're so reliant to fall back on the sort of health and safety protocols. You know, I think it's been ebbing away, but effectively we need to also take on our own risk assessment. I mean, we do it every single day. When you cross the road, whatever you are taking on,
Yeah.
and, you know, looking at your own risk. So
Yeah.
I think the same is true. I've been talking about it passionately around festivals, but again, if you decide to go front of stage into that mosh pit, you've got to underwrite that own risk assessment yourself, you know, and think, actually, you know, A, I don't feel comfortable, or B, you know, I am, you know, concerned about transmission.
Mm.
You know, where I'm trying to focus on is I don't want to be detrimental to that customer experience. And, you know, it would be their right, obviously, to go to any sort of F&B outlet because that's part of the experience. Whereas, you know, if you go to front of stage, obviously I appreciate it is part of the experience, but if you've got delays and stuff, then hopefully it won't be so detrimental.
This is the thing from a technical production point of view, you know, whether or not I think inevitably we will see shows reassessing things like not just delay towers, which are commonplace anyway, but, you know, zones that are not at front of the main stage or at the front of a stage where people can maybe feel like they are immersed in the experience of the live event, be that a band or a DJ or whatever the live artist is. You know, perhaps a rethinking of the arena layout so that it's not just about putting delay towers in to give people who are not lucky to be at the front some audio, but about creating zones that they can experience in that are maybe a bit, you know, less congested.
Yeah, and I think, you know, one thing we may see this summer is less marquees, you know, less enclosed so big top arenas, just because, you know, all of the data suggests outdoor, you know, is a far safer way. And obviously, if you're then going to present an enclosed environment, that could increase incrementally your risk. Obviously, that comes with other challenges on the technical side, like noise bleed. from
Yeah.
1 to 2. That's one of the reasons we use big tops, is to obviously suppress the sound lead. So yeah, all of these things, and I think this is the challenge that no one can underestimate, is COVID has also brought a much more a much more reduced production schedule and advancing time. We are, as I said before, working on these things all year round, and most of our shows we have been advancing, but I think some promoters out there will be only starting to advance now, or may still wait, and that could be dangerous in the fact that they'll miss other things. Putting on a show for 10-20,000 people is a huge undertaking. It's not just about COVID, there's everything else. You're responsible, you're building almost like a village, 48 hours, however long that may be, and the responsibility sits with you. And on many shows, as I'm effectively at the top of that hierarchy, ultimately it comes to me, and if anything goes wrong, it comes to us.
Buck's got to stop somewhere.
Yeah, and we don't want that dreaded COVID litigation claim or any precedent set. I mean, it'd be very hard to prove that obviously you got COVID at a particular event. Still, it's just it is very challenging. I think the days of those cowboy event organizers have long gone. There's an awful lot of undertaking.
Yeah, absolutely. It'd be interesting to see what sort of picture it paints in terms of insurances and event insurance, going forward. And it may be something that you've already, I've no doubt, probably explored and looked into and spoken to. But I guess unless we get events back running again and we see what happens, it's the kind of thing that's chicken and egg situation, isn't it? You're gonna have to see where things are going and whether or not that has any impact on the sort of the insurance underwriting of events, and whether or not the health and safety officers who are responsible there have to do any additional training or qualify to a certain level in order to be able to advise on COVID related safety. There's all sorts of things that spurs out of what today is a pretty sort of simple discussion.
The insurance is debated consistently. I think now, my argument prior was everyone made parallels to TV and film. Why aren't we getting underwriting? The difficulty there is obviously film and TV are up and running and operational. So any underwriter would be absolutely, they wouldn't be doing their job if they were to suggest that the industry was viable at that point. I know, as insulting as that sounds, however, now with some green light dates, there is a market to underwrite. So I wouldn't be surprised if in Rishi's announcement in the budget, that reinsurance market debate is reopened, or even even talked about at that budget, that there will be some sort of underwriting like they've done in both Germany and the Netherlands. Because that will get the market moving. I mean, at the moment, essentially, as excitable as we can all get about the 21st, if you're really looking at reducing your risk, you can't actually green light a show to the 14th of June because they're going to give 2 weeks notice. So effectively, you are at risk, financially exposed until that point. So whatever money you pay to the supply chain, if that show, you don't know, they may say there may be a failing in the supply chain for vaccinations, etc. We are last of those phases, and there's still a long way to go. I wouldn't,
It's a nightmare, isn't it? If you've got a show planned for Friday 25th, 6th, 7th of June, you're in complete no man's land, because it could realistically get 2 weeks before the show and they say, right, we're going to put that 21st date back a week, in which case you're absolutely shafted. And I think there has to be something in place to allow organisers to commit. If they've said that those dates are potential, I think people have every right in some respects to say, look, with a fair wind, if we hit these dates, we could do our event there, but we want some sort of protection if those dates get pushed back. It's not fair to just get 2 weeks before them and say, sorry, plug pulled, guys.
Yeah,
you're out of pocket again.
I think we will see that. The Netherlands, they went through a similar sort of cycle where they announced, no show before date, which was the 1st of July, and then effectively if you had a show date after that, they would underwrite it, and they put a considerable amount of fund towards it. And I think that it's just so many sectors are affected. I mean, not just us, but everything, travel,
everyone's crying out for it. I see people on LinkedIn a guy that I'm connected with, who works in the fitness industry,
Yeah.
and they're banging the same drums, not to devalue it, to use that term, but they're saying, gyms, the industry's on its knees, they're trainers, staff, equipment companies, all the peripherals, they've got a similar sort of supply chain. There are a lot of sort of parallels with the events industry, and that they're on their knees at the moment, and they're crying out for similar sort of help and protection.
And they haven't had that necessarily. A load of sectors haven't had, as horrendous as it's been, and we genuinely didn't have any, at all any trading for many people. I mean, we were really fortunate with the health and safety side, but we have had the Arts Council England funding from many people within the sector, the promoter side, whereas, gyms, I don't know much about aviation. I know they've had loans, but in terms of grants, less so, and it's wide reaching, isn't it? I mean, professional services, every sector, no one's not affected.
Exactly.
I mean, maybe video.
Yeah, if you work at Netflix, you're all right.
It's been all right, yeah. So I think, yeah, it's hard, isn't it, to keep banging on. But yeah, I mean, I live and breathe this sector and all the work I do, AIF as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was interesting. The AIF, were quick to respond yesterday, weren't they? That there was a statement up on the website very, very quickly, and quite rightly supporting in principle what had been said, but understandably, and I back it completely, raising ongoing concerns about what needs to be addressed for things to happen. And I congratulate certainly the work that the AIF have been doing to sort of maintain a constant, I'll call it a barrage of information in a good way, because unfortunately, if you don't, once you stop banging the drum in a situation like we've been in, you quickly get forgotten about. And I think people in the industry have every right to bang the drum to make sure that they're not forgotten about. And
never as associations been more important. We've been lobbying really hard, and AIF, amongst other associations, were instrumental in getting Arts Council England to reassign, over £1 billion to our sector, because prior to that, without all the lobbying that many of the associations within, the live have been doing, it wasn't going to get assigned at all. It was it was meant for more cultural institutions, not us. So it has been incredible. And, another silver lining is just maybe 12 months ago, many ministers, many MPs, were completely in the dark in terms of our sector. They didn't know what festivals were, apart from Glastonbury or, maybe Wilderness, because a few of them live near there. So, we have got, much better positioning. And I think some of them genuinely see, all of the benefits. It's not just about the show, it's the economic benefits of the whole, the region where a show is. It does have an impact.
You look at Reading Festival and where it's situated, the economic benefits that it brings, because it's a greenfield festival, but it's in a relatively urban area in terms of accessibility, and the sort of the business that the supermarkets and the corner shops do, with people sort of walking towards the festival site and calling and picking up another case of beer, or whatever it is that they're buying on the way in. There's a huge economic benefit to a town like that because of the festival and what it brings to it.
And the whole ecosystem for artists, they're so reliant on that live revenue. Obviously sales, as we all know, are nothing like they were maybe 10, 15 years ago. So now
sales of people, nobody sells any music. They get their 10 pence from Spotify once a decade.
So for them, they're reliant from the massive artists, but all of the ecosystem and all of the the more emerging artists are so reliant from nightclubs right through to festivals. Without that, they need to live as well. So the ecosystem, I think, is often it's very granular or seen in quite a granular view. It's huge ecosystem. I mean, it's worth billions of pounds.
Absolutely.
It is crumbling, and that's why we've been so desperate for support.
Absolutely. And it's something that we need to continue the discussion on. And this is an open invitation to Nick and to anybody else who's sort of doing, being very vocal about it. Nick, if you at any point, if you want to come back on the podcast, and if there's anything specific that you'd like to talk about, as much as we can do to get word out into the channels that we've got available via Event Industry News, then we're here to support the sector. And open invitation, mate. Anytime you want to come on and talk about this, then
Okay.
come on, get that drum and bang it as hard as you need to.
No, brilliant. I appreciate that, Adam.
We've been talking on the podcast today to Nick Morgan, CEO of We Are the Fair and We Are Placemaking. If you want to find out more about what those guys do, they're really easy to find. Google We Are the Fair and you'll land on their website very easily. And similarly, Nick, social media handles, anything specific that you want to shout out? Where should people find you?
Yeah, well, we're at We Are the Fair on Instagram. So yeah, do look us up. I'm on LinkedIn, so by all means, if I can help, I'm very passionate about this sector. I just want to get it off its knees and back up and running. I think we all thrive for being back in the field, as much as we might have moaned 2 years ago about how exhausting a season is. I think for my team alone, we just want to be back, with the audience and back with our promoters.
Yeah, and as Nick pointed out, there's lots of trade associations doing lots of great things at the moment. And if you listen to this podcast today, go and search for AIForg.com. Go and look up NOEA, National Outdoor Events Association. Go and look up the AEV, the AEO, all these different associations that are out there that have been working hard to keep things in the media and keep, as I said, banging this drum. Go onto LinkedIn. There are loads of groups and pages that have been set up that are loads of really good, useful information that people are spending time digging up and publishing on these platforms, so that people who work in the industry can access and see clearly what's affecting them directly. Because unfortunately, the mainstream media will post a general picture of things that are not necessarily industry specific. So if you want to be industry specific and you want to stay abreast of what's happening, then I urge you, as Nick would, I'm sure, to go to some of these association websites and LinkedIn pages and groups and find out what's happening. Nick, thanks very much for joining us today. It's been great to have you on.
Thank you very much.
And if you are watching today's video of the podcast on the website, then I would say, why? First of all, why would you want to look at me on a video? Get over to your podcast platform and listen to it whilst you're out walking your dog or something like that, and you'll soak in all that information whilst you're enjoying the fresh air that Great Britain allows you as well. Of course, if you are listening to this already, you can, if you'd like, hop over to eventindustrynews.com and check out some of the news and features that are on there and access the stuff that's there rather than looking at a video of me. It's much more enjoyable, I can assure you. Nick, thanks again for joining us today. We hope to see you in the next few months, find out what's happening, hopefully as we progress down this roadmap that was set out yesterday and things become a little bit clearer and we hit some of these key dates. We can talk to you to see what's happening in the industry and get a feel for how things, hopefully, fingers crossed, will be opening up again in the summertime. Good to see you today. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.